The silence in my apartment is so loud it's starting to hum. It's 2 a.m. and my thumb is raw from scrolling, from refreshing, from swiping down on screens that refuse to give me anything new. The Weekend Warriors group chat, once a constant stream of memes and plans, has been dead for 3 days. Not a single message. The Thompson clan family chat is worse. It's active, oh, it's painfully active. Aunt Carol just posted a picture of her new poodle, my cousin chimed in, my own mother replied with a heart emoji. But my messages, my attempts to join in, just sit there, ignored, floating in a digital void while the conversation simply flows around them. And then there's Samuel. His chat window is open on my phone, a monument to my own desperation. My last message, sent 4 hours ago, just says, "Sam, can we please just talk?" Underneath it, two little words in a stark gray font. Read 8:14 p.m. How does this happen? How do you go from being family, from being close to this? It was a mistake. A stupid, impulsive thing born out of a bad feeling after that damn reunion. It was just a couple of private messages. God, it wasn't a state secret. It wasn't a betrayal, not really. So why am I being treated like this? It feels like I'm a ghost haunting my own life. They're treating me like I committed some unforgivable crime, and for the life of me, I just can't wrap my head around why the punishment is this. This total suffocating erasure. It all started at the annual family reunion a few weeks ago, one of those sprawling potluck-style affairs at my aunt's house where everyone pretends to be closer than they actually are. Samuel, of course, was the son everyone orbited. He arrived with his entourage, not just his lovely wife, but a handful of his friends, David, a sharp-witted guy he co-founded his company with, and a few others from their tight-knit circle. They were all so effortless, confident, funny, radiating a kind of success that felt both casual and intimidating. They talked about their upcoming trip to Patagonia like it was a weekend drive. And I watched as he moved through the party, a handshake here, a charming story there, effortlessly connecting my stuffy uncle with his cool tech bro friend. Everyone loves Samuel. He's the golden boy, the one who made it out of our sleepy hometown and built a life for himself in the city. And I hate that I'm saying this, but it's true. I've spent my entire life in his shadow. He was always the benchmark. At one point, Aunt Carol squeezed my arm and said, "Emily, you're looking well." "Still at that marketing firm?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "That's nice, dear," she said, her eyes already scanning the room for a more important target. A moment later, I overheard her gushing to someone, "Did you hear Samuel's startup just got another round of funding? He's a genius, that boy." The worst part, he was never a jerk about it. In fact, he's the reason I have the job I do. 4 years ago, when I was floundering after college with a useless degree and zero prospects, he's the one who sat me down. He didn't just make a call. He spent a whole weekend rewriting my resume, running mock interviews with me until I stopped sounding like a terrified kid. He introduced me to the head of department not just as his cousin, but as a hidden gem he was proud to recommend. He vouched for me, putting his own credibility on the line. He was my guide, my enabler in the best sense of the word. But at that party, standing near the cheese platter, none of that gratitude surfaced. All I felt was the sting of being his project. His success story, while he was holding court, I was just there, the before picture, the girl he'd saved. The old wound, the one I thought had scarred over, was throbbing. It was a deep, primal feeling of being overlooked, of being fundamentally less than. And watching him, so perfect and so beloved, I didn't feel gratitude. I felt a bitter, ugly resentment churning in my gut, a desperate need to find a crack in his perfect facade. That feeling festered for days after the reunion. It was like a low-grade fever, a constant humming irritation in the back of my mind. I'd be sitting on my couch, scrolling through my phone, and a picture from the Weekend Warriors chat would pop up, the group he'd so magnanimously added me to. There they were, laughing on a rooftop bar, the city lights twinkling behind them. Samuel front and center. I wasn't in the picture, I wasn't even invited. And the caption posted by someone else read, "The A team." I felt a hot flash of shame. I was at best on the B team, the reserve squad. I needed to change the story. I needed, just for once, to feel like I had some power, some control. I needed to win. So I did something calculated and ugly. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for, David, Samuel's business partner, the co-founder, the one whose trust was Samuel's most valuable asset. Planting a seed of doubt there, that would be a surgical strike. My heart was thumping with a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. I opened a new message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I spent almost an hour crafting the perfect text, typing and deleting, rereading and editing until it sounded just right, concerned, not malicious. Casual, not crazy. Hey David, I finally wrote, my breath held tight in my chest. Weird question and feel free to tell me to mind my own business. Just got a bit of a strange vibe from Sam at the reunion. Is everything okay with him? He seems a bit stressed. Maybe some financial pressure with the new funding round? Hope I'm not overstepping, just worried about him. I hit send before I could second guess myself. My justification, my pathetic little rationalization, was that I wasn't lying. Samuel was stressed. Who isn't when running a company? He did have financial pressures. It's a startup, that's a given. I was just framing the truth in a way that planted a seed of doubt. I was just leveling the playing field. Then, high on this petty surge of power, I did it again. I sent a slightly different version to another friend of his, a woman named Clara, the group's unofficial therapist. To her, I tailored the message differently. I hinted at emotional struggles, suggesting he was more fragile than he lets on and was shouldering too much alone. It was a masterpiece of plausible deniability. I wasn't gossiping, I was caring. It was a small, secret act of sabotage, a way to win a game only I was playing. And in that moment, staring at the two delivered receipts, I felt a sick, triumphant satisfaction. I had finally taken back the pen and was rewriting my role in his perfect golden story. For a few days, the only feedback I got was a quiet, unnerving silence. David replied with a curt, "Thanks for the concern, Emily, I'm sure he's fine." Clara didn't reply at all. The silence itself felt like a victory at first. I imagined my little bombs had gone off, creating subtle internal chaos in their perfect little world. I pictured them looking at Samuel with a new, critical eye, questioning his flawless leadership. The first real sign that something was wrong came that Friday. There was a planned group hike for Saturday, something we'd been talking about for weeks. I texted the group chat on Friday afternoon, "Hey guys, what time are we meeting up tomorrow?" An hour passed, then two. Finally, the organizer, a guy named Robs, replied to the whole group. "Hey all, bad news, looks like the weather is turning, forecast says heavy rain, have to call it off, rain check soon." I felt a pang of disappointment but accepted it. Then on Saturday afternoon, I was scrolling through Instagram, and there it was, a picture posted by Clara. It was a group shot, a selfie taken from a sun-drenched mountain peak. There was Rob, David, Clara, Samuel, and his wife, all of them, grinning under a perfectly clear blue sky. The caption read, "Couldn't have asked for a better day for it." My blood ran cold. It wasn't a rain check, it was an exclusion. I immediately sent a message to Samuel, trying to sound casual, breezy. "Hey, saw the hiking pic, looks like the weather cleared up after all. So bummed I missed it." Ugh. His reply came back almost instantly, but it wasn't his usual warm, emoji-filled text, it was 3 words. "Yeah. It was nice." The politeness was colder than any angry outburst could have been. The intimacy, the familial warmth that had always existed between us, even when I was resentful, was just gone. A knot of dread started to form in my stomach. I had wanted to create a crack in his world, but I was beginning to suspect I had only managed to saw off the branch I was sitting on. The silence that followed was no longer satisfying, it was terrifying. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It was a slow, methodical dismantling of my social life. The next week, I noticed I couldn't see the Weekend Warriors group chat anymore. I searched for it, thinking it was a glitch, but it was gone. I hadn't been removed with a formal notification, I had just vanished. It was like I had never been there at all. I tried calling one of the girls from the group, Sarah, someone I'd always gotten along with. She picked up, but her voice was strained, distant. "Hey Sarah, weird question, did the group chat get deleted or something?" I asked, trying to sound nonchalant. There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear her take a deep breath. "Oh, no, it's still here." "Oh, that's weird, I can't seem to find it," I lied, my heart starting to pound. The sigh that came through the phone was heavy with a pity I didn't want. "Listen, Emily, I don't really want to get in the middle of this. It's between you and Samuel." "In the middle of what?" My voice was rising, a note of panic creeping in. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "I think you do," she said softly. "Look, I have to go. It's probably best if we just give it some space for a while." The line went dead. That was the moment the dread turned into full-blown panic. This wasn't just Samuel being mad at me. This was a coordinated, systematic isolation. He was using the very influence and trust I resented him for, the social capital he had built and generously shared with me, as a weapon. He was turning off the taps. The final, devastating blow came from family. My aunt, Samuel's mother, called me that evening. There was no warmth in her voice, none of her usual bubbly chatter. It was flat, cold, and heavy with disappointment. "Emily," she began, and the way she said my name made me flinch. "I need you to tell me why. Why would you do that to him?" "Do what?" "Aunt Carol, I don't know what everyone is talking about." The denial felt flimsy and pathetic even as it left my lips. "Don't lie to me," she snapped, her voice cracking with anger. "After everything he's done for you, the job, the introductions, always talking you up to anyone who would listen. He brought you into his life and you tried to poison it from the inside. Why were you that jealous?" The word hung in the air between us. Jealous. It was so ugly, so petty, and so undeniably true, I had no answer. There was nothing I could say that wouldn't condemn me further. He hadn't fought back, he hadn't yelled or accused. He had simply held up my actions to the light and let everyone else be my judge and jury, and they had all reached the same verdict. For a week, I was trapped in a vortex of my own making, completely ostracized and desperate for an explanation, for a single voice that didn't sound like a slammed door. I finally cornered my younger cousin, Olivia, at a coffee shop. She's always been the Switzerland of the family, kind to a fault and allergic to drama. She looked deeply uncomfortable when I sat down, clutching her latte like a shield. "Please, Liv," I begged, my voice cracking. "You have to tell me what happened. What did he say? Did he tell everyone I'm some horrible monster?" Olivia winced, stirring her coffee with a shaky hand. "He didn't have to, that's the thing." She avoided my eyes, staring into her cup as if the answer was written in the foam. "He wasn't angry, he was, I don't know, just disappointed. It was way worse than if he'd been screaming." She took a deep breath and finally looked at me, her expression a painful mix of pity and sorrow. "He found out because David called him. David was worried. He said, 'Your cousin reached out to me and she seems to think you're on the verge of a breakdown. Is everything okay?' Do you need to talk?" Samuel was completely blindsided. My stomach clenched. "He didn't go on a rampage," Olivia continued, her voice barely a whisper. "He did something much quieter. He took screenshots of the messages you sent to David and the ones you sent to Clara. He posted them in the Weekend Warriors chat. There was no angry caption, no big explanation." She paused, and this was the part that broke me. This was the echo from the blast zone that finally reached my ears and shattered everything. All he wrote underneath the screenshots was, she recited as if from memory, "Hey everyone, this is my cousin Emily. I vouched for her and brought her into our circle. That was my mistake, and I'm sorry for my terrible judgment. I apologize for any trouble this has caused." I just stared at her, my vision blurring. It all clicked into place with a horrifying, deafening clarity. I hadn't attacked his image. I hadn't just made him look bad. I had attacked the very foundation of his character in that world. His judgment, his role as a guide, as a talent spotter, as a trustworthy enabler. I didn't just throw a rock at his statue. I took a sledgehammer to the plaque that read, "Curated by Samuel Thompson." I had made his endorsement of me look like a foolish, embarrassing mistake. And in front of everyone he respected, he had simply agreed. Which brings us to last night, Thanksgiving, the one family gathering that is absolutely, unequivocally non-negotiable. Walking into my aunt's house felt like walking into a courtroom where my sentence had already been served. The air was thick with the smell of turkey, and a strained, suffocating politeness directed squarely at me. I was a ghost at the feast, a pariah in a cashmere sweater. My cousins made brief, pained eye contact. My uncles asked me how work was with the same forced enthusiasm they'd use on a stranger at a bus stop. I was seated at the far end of the long dining table, a strategic placement that felt both intentional and brutally effective. I was there, but I wasn't. The real torture was watching Samuel. He was at the center of the table, of course, holding court. He was telling a hilarious story about a recent business trip, and the whole table was captivated, erupting in waves of genuine, easy laughter. He looked relaxed, he looked happy, he looked completely and utterly unbothered by my presence. At one point, while reaching for the gravy boat, his eyes swept across the table and landed on me for a fraction of a second. There was no anger in his gaze, no hatred, not even the cold disappointment I had dreaded. There was nothing. It was the blank, indifferent look you give a piece of furniture you don't even realize is in the room. It was the look of absolute irrelevance. I sat there, pushing mashed potatoes around my plate, the sound of my family's laughter washing over me like a foreign language. The warmth of the room, the clinking of glasses, the cheerful chaos, it all felt a million miles away. I was in a bubble of ice-cold silence. In my stupid, pathetic little war to win back control, to feel seen, I had achieved the exact opposite. I had made myself so toxic that the only way for them to cope was to pretend I didn't exist at all. I had won my victory, and my prize was this. This hollow, echoing loneliness in a room full of people I used to call my own.